unoccupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, patriots and preppers. I am Mack Worley III, and this is On the Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. As I've said before, and I say every episode, this is not my show. This is your show. This is your grassroots activism movement. It's the On the Move movement, and it can't function without you. However, it's bigger than one man. I want to thank each and every one of you for your patriotism and for taking the time to get involved. The date is March 30th, 2014, and we have a really good show in store for you all today. At 5:45 p.m. My time, that's Pacific Standard Time, we're going to be joined by special guest Chad Kent, who is an award-winning speaker, and he's the author of the book Uncomplicating the Constitution. We're going to be talking about a range of different topics, but we're going to start out talking about Obamacare, NSA spying, and then we'll move on to whatever else comes up. So feel free to call in with your own topics. Anything that you'd like to discuss is on the table. We'll be taking your calls and reading your emails. So if you'd like to join the conversation today, please give us a call at 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, so don't forget to check us out at onthemoveshow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow, facebook.com/onthemoveshow, youtube.com/onthemoveshow, and twitter.com/onthemoveshow. We got a store on our website, onthemoveshow.com. You can click the shop link on the homepage there, and we got 3 different stores on there that you can choose from. We got hundreds of products for sale on there. They range from like T-shirts to freeze-dried food to books that I recommend reading, bumper stickers, so much other stuff on there. Just check it out and see if there's anything that you're interested in, because a lot of that stuff, you know, is real original designs that we've made, and it's for patriots by patriots. It's things that we made because we wanted, and we thought they would be cool, so now we're offering them to you guys. So your purchases will help make On the Move bigger and better, and we sure do appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Anyway, so I want to start and talk again. I know I mentioned it last week, but we have started a new segment here on Sounding Off with Tank and Tony. They have their show every Friday on blogtalkradio.com/sounding off with Tank and Tony, or you can just search them on Blog Talk Radio, Sounding Off with Tank and Tony. Anyway, I do a 5-minute segment there on their show now. It should be at about 7:15 p.m. I believe that's Pacific Standard Time. Yes, it's Pacific Standard Time. So I do a show, 5 minutes on there, or a little segment on their show, and it's we call it 5 Minutes on the Move. So check it out. Support Sounding Off and Tank and Tony. It's a great show. They have a lot of really interesting things to say, and they cover a lot of news that the mainstream media won't report. So check them out, support them, and, you know, keep an ear out for me. I'll be on there every Friday. So, all right. So now we're going to move on to the segment that we start every show with, and we like to call this segment This Day in History.
This Day in History.
Because people have got to know whether or not the president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Yesterday,
what your country can do for you.
Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall.
And the people who knock these buildings down.
A date which will live in infamy.
We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
All right, so this day in history, we're not really looking too far back. Today, March 30th, 2009, which is 5 years ago today, according to Yahoo News, President Barack Obama asserted unprecedented government control over the auto industry. He rejected turnaround plans for General Motors and Chrysler, and he basically made it possible for us to bail out these bankrupting auto giants. So they were going to crash on their own, and he bailed them out. He provided billions of taxpayer dollars to these companies. So let's just give a little bit of insight first as to why these companies needed bailed out in the first place. Okay, why did these companies fail? You know, there's many reasons why the companies were failing, but I'm only going to cover a couple of the main ones here that I was able to research. a lot of people are blaming this on their focus on the high profit margin vehicles such as Hummers and SUVs. They made a lot of money off these vehicles, so they continue to produce a lot of them. And in doing that, when the price of fuel went up, the demand for these gas-guzzling vehicles went down because obviously people don't want to drive something that's costing them a fortune to drive. So people were more inclined to buy fuel-efficient cars that came from Japan or Europe. Here's an interesting fact, fun fact. When Bush left office, the price of gas, it was $1.78 per gallon. Today, the national average for gas has more than doubled. We're seeing it somewhere around $3.64 a gallon. So where's the outrage over that, by the way? Why aren't Obama's constituents, just screaming at him like crazy? Because these are the people that were hurt most by this high fuel and energy cost. It was Obama's core supporters, the low-income families that voted for him. So, are they still drunk on all that hope and change that they were promised? It seems to me now that the only thing they have left is hoping that they will find change in the cushions of their couch in order to fill up their gas tanks. Back to GM and Chrysler. These companies, they all had some kind of like bad deal with the United Auto Workers Union. Now, this right here is important, okay? Because I'm talking specifically about the job guarantees that they had kept with the auto workers, that even if they were laid off, they would be paid nearly full salary, even if they're laid off. So they still have to continue to fork out money, even if they're trying to cut back. That's crazy. But according to CNN Money, that provision pushed automakers to keep producing cars, even if there was no demand for them, which hurt sales prices and their competitiveness. Obviously, this is supply and demand. When you see that there's a crapload of supply of these Hummers and SUVs and nobody's buying them, the price for them goes down. So that right there, it's supply and demand. That's economics 101. I'm not an economics major or anything. That's simple. All right. There's a major debate that we're having whether or not it was a good thing or a bad thing to bail these guys out. According to Ann Arbor, Michigan Center, every dollar spent on the taxpayers' behalf led to nearly $8 in savings. This is because bailouts of 2008 and 2009 averted the wave of bankruptcy that would have wiped out $284 billion in household income in 2009 and 2010 and drained $105 billion from federal coffers by chipping away at tax revenues and hiking demand for services such as unemployment insurance. So apparently these guys are able to predict the future. These people at Ann Arbor, Michigan Center, they are able to look into a crystal ball and foresee what could have happened, what would have happened. All right. According to Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney, whose background is in private equity finance, involved in corporate turnaround specifically, he argued in an opinion piece in Detroit News that the companies would have been even more competitive if the private sector, rather than the Treasury Department, had funded the reorganization. He said, instead of the free market doing what it does best, we just got a major taste of crony capitalism, Obama style. He went on to say that with a lot of non-union workers and investors, ended up getting the short end of the stick, Obama's union allies and his major campaign contributors reaped reward after reward, all on the taxpayer's dime. So what are my thoughts on this situation? All right. I know we're still in this day in history. We're not even in the Mack attack yet. So right now, we're this day in history. What are my thoughts on what happened? Obviously, like I said, I am not an economist. And unlike, the guys up there in Michigan, I don't have a crystal ball either. I'm not able to see what will happen in the future in different scenarios. So, as far as I knew, though, the government didn't either. So, there's no way to tell what would have happened if we did nothing. I know that the free market is self-correcting. If we do nothing to it, it should fix itself. All right? So I also don't think that the government should be picking in winners and losers. So just because one company is huge and it employs a large section of a city and has some kind of major influence on our economy, I personally don't think that it's a good idea that we should give them some kind of additional protection from bad decisions. If the company fails because there's a lack of demand for the product or because they have some stupid decisions that they've made, I think that company should pay the price and face the consequences of their actions, just like you or I would have to. I don't see the government stepping in and bailing me out if I overextend myself. If that happens, I'm in a world of hurt. Why is this company, being singled out? Both of these companies are being singled out. Chrysler and GM. They're now, they get special rewards. And when the government steps in, the government de-incentivizes these CEOs to make safe and smart decisions. To me, that's just ridiculous. Now they know that they can take chances. They can be risky, because the government will just step in and save their keisters once again. I'm tired of this, man. Like I said, there's no way to know what would have happened if the government didn't bail out the auto industry. There's no way we could tell. They could have had to sell off their companies to new owners, and those new owners could have had to manage the companies better. Maybe they would be doing better. GM and Chrysler could be doing far better than they are right now, which, by the way, I'll admit, right now, they have been reporting record profits for the first time since 2004. So, okay, things are great, but they could have been better. You never know, all right? We'll never know what could have been, what would have been, but what we do know right now is that we, the taxpayers, we're now on the hook for billions of dollars. And we're reported to have lost billions of dollars after the U.S. government started selling the shares that they own in the stock. That's money we will never get back. And they're trying to say, we saved for every $1 we spent, we saved 8 on things that would have happened. They don't know what would have happened. They don't have a crystal ball, all right? So that is money that, like I said, we will never get back. And all this is happening while these companies are still giving their executives fat bonuses. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think it would probably make sense to you guys. I'd like to know what you have to say. We're moving on, but feel free to join the conversation. If you want to give us a call and talk about this, the number to the show is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, so now it's time for my favorite part of the show. We like to call it the Weekly Defender.
And now it's time for the Weekly Defender.
You have the right to defend your life, the right to defend your family, and the right to defend your freedom.
All right, this is a segment of the show that I like to report on armed citizens in the news. People who have used their firearms to defend their family, their property, and or themselves. So our first Weekly Defender we found on the Detroit Free Press. We had here an admitted heroin addict that was confronted outside a Home Depot in Roseville, Michigan by 2 loss prevention officers that suspected him of shoplifting. So when these employees tried to apprehend the man, he responded by drawing a syringe from his jacket and slashing at the personnel, striking one of the employees several times. How scary would that be? If you're just out there trying to do your job and say, hey, man, we got to hold you here so we can investigate the situation, all right, after this guy supposedly shoplifted, all right, then he pulls out a syringe that he probably used at some point, and he apparently hit these guys several times. So, I'm sure they're worried about having some kind of disease contracted to him. A customer and a right-to-carry permit holder witnessed the incident. He ended up drawing a handgun and ordered the addict to halt his attack. The attacker initially complied and then attempted to flee as the police approached, but he eventually was captured by law enforcement shortly after. So, Roseville Police Chief James Berlin told local news outlet that the right-to-carry permit holder will be put up for a citizen's award. A citizen's award. That's awesome. Way to go. So I'm totally excited about that situation because not only could that situation have ended up a lot worse, but he's being recognized by the chief of police and given an award. That's amazing. So way to go. Way to go to the Michigan Police Department there, the Roseville Police Department. That's awesome. Anyway, our next weekly defender we found on the Fayetteville Observer. A 26-year-old pizza delivery driver, Ashley Marie Hurd, was delivering a pizza into an address in Fayetteville, North Carolina, when an armed robber confronted her from behind. The criminal put a gun to Hurd's head and demanded cash. Hurd responded by drawing her own gun, which prompted the robber to flee. And that happened on the 14th of March. So this is a crazy situation, and I'll go ahead and give you my personal thoughts on this because I can relate to this. You all may not know, but back in my youth, I actually was a pizza delivery guy. So, I went around and delivered pizzas, and sometimes I had to deliver pizzas into neighborhoods that were a little shady. So there's some times where I walked into situations and I thought I was about to get mugged. And, I actually have one time where I pulled up at an address, and I started walking up to an address, and a group of guys surrounded me. One of them he sat on my Jeep. I couldn't get away, and, luckily the homeowner, the person who delivered the pizza, came out and shooed these guys off because he knew, hey, these guys are about to mess this guy up, and I'm the one that called him out here. So, that it's a pretty scary thing. Delivery drivers, those guys, they have a hard job to do. So, don't forget to tip your delivery guys, everybody. All right. But anyway, I think it's great that this girl had her own firearm as well, and that it likely saved her butt in this situation. So that's awesome. I know when I was delivering pizzas, I was too young to have a concealed carry permit. So, I know I would have loved to have a firearm in that situation, and it would have possibly made me feel a little bit more secure in some of the areas that I was going. So. But anyway, I love to hear about how law-abiding citizens use their firearms to protect themselves. We at On the Move, we support your rights. You have a right to defend your life, you have a right to defend your family, and you have a right to defend your freedom. If you have a story about how you lawfully defended yourself, or you'd like to comment on one of these stories, we'd like to hear from you. Give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, so at this point, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with the Mack Attack after this.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
This is the segment of the show where I give you my take on outrageous events in the news. If you'd like to join the conversation, please give us a call at 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So what are we talking about today? What's on the agenda, Mac? Well, California Senator Leland Yee was just arrested for gun trafficking. Yay! All right, so Senator Yee has become known for taking away guns from law-abiding citizens. This is his platform. This is what he stands for. He wants to take your guns away. He wants to take my guns away. He doesn't want anyone to have guns. He stood on all these anti-gun issues, just about every one that you can think of. And he's even one of those people that blame violent video games for the actions of people. So it's the inanimate object's fault, the video game, that somebody was violent. All right. I got a clip here from Next News Network on Yee's arrest, and they're discussing what happened with him. And basically, it's outrageous to me that we have an anti-gun senator who was arrested for gun trafficking. And don't forget, everybody, this is a Democrat, okay? So I have the clip here. Here's a clip. I'll just let you guys hear it for yourself.
A California state senator has been convicted of illegal arms trafficking. That's right. Leland Yee was one of 26 people arrested in an FBI sting operation. He was charged with 2 felony counts of conspiring to import weapons and 6 corruption charges. The FBI said the lawmaker asked for donations to introduce an undercover agent to a weapons dealer. According to the FBI, the lawmaker also offered to arrange a meeting between the 2 parties, and Yee allegedly offered to do favors for the undercover agent in exchange for campaign contributions. The U.S. Attorney's Office stated, during a meeting with the undercover agent, Yee and Jackson allegedly discussed details of the specific types of weapons the undercover agent was interested in buying and importing. He becomes the 3rd Democratic senator in California to face criminal charges in recent days. This could have an effect on the upcoming statewide elections. Yee is a candidate for Secretary of State, but the fallout from this arrest could extend well beyond that one seat.
All right, so this is obviously not the first time that this kind of stuff has happened from the Democrats. So let me ask you, Mr. Yee, did a video game make you break these laws? Should we go out and ban the video game Grand Theft Auto now? It had to be all that game's fault, right? I mean, that's how you look at it with gun violence, so why wouldn't this apply with it too, right? You know, I just find it hilarious that this is supposed to be an anti-gun politician, and he was caught in a gun trafficking scandal. You know, this reminds me an awful lot like the Obama administration. You know how they were caught in Operation Fast and Furious? You know, the operation where they allowed American guns to be sold to known drug cartel affiliates. All right, not just people that were, you know, everyday Joe Schmoes or whatever. These guys are known drug cartel affiliates. You know, these guys were allowed then to walk these illegally purchased guns across the border in an attempt from the ATF to track where the guns went. Okay, so no one spoke up about this disastrous plan, this stupid, dim-witted plan, until one of the guns was used in the murder of border agent Brian Terry. So no one had the cojones to speak up and say, hey, you know, this is wrong. This is probably pretty dangerous. Hundreds of Mexicans are dying over there because of these guns. But then when it happens on U.S. soil to a border agent, all right, then we have people that get upset with it, okay? When that happened, these whistleblowers in the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives finally spoke out against this highly illegal operation. You know, so as we all know, Attorney General Eric Holder was immediately arrested and found guilty for his part in this gun trafficking scandal. Oh wait, never mind. You know, he wasn't arrested immediately, but during the congressional hearing, he refused to provide evidence subpoenaed, and he was then placed in contempt of Congress and arrested. Oh wait, I'm sorry. No, he wasn't arrested for that either. I'm sorry. Instead of that, the Obama administration claimed executive privilege over these documents, which, for the record, is only authorized to be used when the documents could severely damage national security. So even though Eric Holder was placed in contempt of Congress, there was nothing that could be done to force them to hand over the documents. Hey, here's a fun fact for you all. Eric Holder is now the first Attorney General ever to be held in contempt by Congress. We're making history, everyone, every day. We got a black president in the White House. That's history right there. Now we've got the first ever Attorney General to ever be held in contempt of Congress. You know, these could be good things, but nothing happened, okay? I was totally excited when Obama got into the White House. I was hoping that, you know, because he's the first black president, I wanted him to be a success. I was hoping that he would be. I hope that all my fears and concerns were wrong. At minimum, I just wanted him to skate by and not do anything tyrannical, all right? I was happy that it was a big day in history for us, but he's ruined it. He's ruined it. You know, now I'm hoping for the next black president to be the best president ever. I don't know if there ever will be one. I hope so. I hope this doesn't discourage everyone. But, you know, he was supposed to be the man that would bring us all together. He was supposed to keep everyone together, you know, and consolidate this nation and make us forget about all the racial inequality that's happened. But what has happened with this president? And I know I'm going off in the weeds, but I don't care. I'm going to talk about this a little bit here, okay? Obama, it seems like he's taken every single opportunity to separate us, to segregate us, to divide us, to make us angry at one another, divide us into small groups, and let us fight. He spoke up for no reason at all during the Trayvon Martin situation. He took the side of Trayvon Martin, who was beating George Zimmerman's head into the ground, MMA style, ground and pound, all right? This kid was beating the crap out of this guy, all right? And George Zimmerman was found innocent, okay? George Zimmerman, whether or not you agree or disagree, he was found innocent, okay? So, and our president decides that he's just going to stand up and say, hey, you know, even though I don't have a son, you know, it could have been my son out there. It could have been me out there. You know what? This is bull crap. First of all, the George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin thing, it wasn't even a racial thing. George Zimmerman is a Hispanic. He's got pictures of going to like some kind of dance or a prom or something with an African American woman. So how is this racial? How is this a racial thing? All right, that one is so stupid. But then the president piped in and created even more division, and now it became this big white versus black thing, and George Zimmerman isn't even white. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I don't know. Anyway, I know I'm in the weeds. We're coming back. So, you know, like I said, we're making history now. You know, Eric Holder, first Attorney General ever to be held in contempt of Congress, which that could have been a good thing if we could have done something with it. Because if he's genuinely guilty, that's fine. You know, send his butt to jail. But we're not putting him in jail. Nothing happened. Nothing at all. So now after all is said and done, Obama's impeachment has begun. And, you know, it's for his involvement in and actions taken to cover up Fast and Furious. Oh, wait a minute. Whoops. I'm wrong again. Nothing at all happened. Nothing. Obama is still free to violate the Constitution and the law as he sees fit. We don't even have the articles of impeachment being voted on in Congress. No one has the stones to actually stand up for what's right anymore, it seems like. We'll probably never know what happened during Operation Fast and Furious until decades from now, because the people in charge of the Justice Department are the ones who were directly involved. They're the ones throwing up the roadblocks, and then they're backed by the president, and that to me screams cover-up, okay? So to me, it's no surprise that Senator Yee was involved in gun trafficking. He was just following the footsteps of our president. Nothing happened to Obama, so why would Yee have any fear that something would happen to him? You know, plus, if you're an anti-gun advocate, all right, and you want guns gone, and you create a situation where there's more guns on the street put squarely in the hands of criminals, that's a good thing for you, right? Now you can blame guns on crime and use that as an excuse to confiscate. That's exactly what ideologues do, everybody. You know, they create a problem only to come in and claim that they have the solution. Well, I'm telling you, man, I am fed up. I'm fed up with it. I say it's time that we send these politicians a message. You know, we're not going to put up with their corruption any longer. We're going to vote them out, impeach them, recall them. We're going to toss them out on their butts if that's what it takes. We just need to get more people in office that are actually going to respect the oath that they took to the Constitution. So I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about this. If you'd like to tune in and just give us your take on it, the number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, so at this point, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with more in a few moments.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
All right, we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. So what I have next here on the agenda is I'd like to talk about Edward Snowden again. He had a few interviews. I mean, this guy's been interviewing like crazy ever since this all happened. But I want to talk about his recent interview where he was talking about how they want to murder him. There are government officials in our government that have came out and said that they would like to kill Edward Snowden. All right, for the stuff that he's done. And they're claiming it on behalf of national security. And, you know, in my opinion, and I've said it before, I think that Edward Snowden is not a traitor. Edward Snowden is a hero, in my opinion. And you can't even look at it in the same light as a traitor, because it's not like he's a spy and he's selling secrets to Russia, all right, or China or any of our enemies or anything like that. He wasn't selling secrets. The people that he released the information to was us. He told us what they were doing to us. So how in the world is that guy a traitor? How is that guy a spy? Unless the enemy of the United States is in fact the people of the United States. Because if that's the case, then at that point, yeah, he's a traitor to the U.S. government. But otherwise, no. Because if we are not the enemy, then he shared information with America. He shared information with civilians. All right, this to me, it's unbelievable how you can call this man a traitor. But you know, if you disagree with me, let me know. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. I'd like to hear your opinion on it. But here's a clip from an interview with Edward Snowden talking about how they want to murder him.
So Snowden, did you sleep well the last couple of nights? Because I was reading that you asked for a kind of police protection. Are there any threats?
There are significant threats, but I sleep very well. There was an article that came out in an online outlet called BuzzFeed, where they interviewed officials from the Pentagon, from the National Security Agency, and they gave them anonymity to be able to say what they wanted. And what they told the reporter was that they wanted to murder me. These individuals, and these are acting government officials, they said they would be happy, they would love to put a bullet in my head, to poison me as I was returning from the grocery store, and have me die in the shower.
But fortunately, you're still alive with us.
Right, but I'm still alive, and I don't lose sleep. Because I've done what I feel I needed to do. It was the right thing to do, and I'm not going to be afraid.
Is the speech of Obama recently the beginning of a serious regulation?
It was clear from the president's speech that he wanted to make minor changes to preserve authorities that we don't need. The president created a review board from officials that were personal friends, from national security insiders, former deputy of the CIA, people who had every incentive to be soft on these programs and to see them in the best possible light. But what they found was that these programs have no value. They've never stopped a terrorist attack in the United States, and they have marginal utility at best for other things. The only thing that the Section 215 phone metadata program, actually it's a broader metadata program, a bulk collection means mass surveillance program, was in stopping or detecting $8,500 wire transfer from a cab driver in California. And it's this kind of review where insiders go, we don't need these programs. These programs don't make us safe. They take a tremendous amount of resources to run, and they offer us no value. They go, we can modify these. The National Security Agency operates under the President's executive authority alone.
How does a young man from Elizabeth City in North Carolina, 30 years old, get in such a position in such a sensitive area?
That's a very difficult question to answer. In general, I would say it highlights the dangers of privatizing government functions. I worked previously as an actual staff officer, a government employee for the Central Intelligence Agency, but I've also served much more frequently as a contractor in a private capacity. What that means is you have private for-profit companies doing inherently governmental work, like targeted espionage, surveillance, compromising foreign systems. And anyone who has the skills, who can convince a private company that they have the qualifications to do so, will be empowered by the government to do that. And there's very little oversight. There's very little review.
And we've talked about this little review that they've done. You know, we're told that there's no way that these systems can be compromised, and that they have so much oversight that no one person can access things without any kind of congressional approval or oversight or anything like that. But we now know that NSA analysts have been caught spying on their ex-girlfriends, and obviously, you know, a slew of other things that we have no way of knowing what happened. Not to mention, this same kind of oversight is supposedly done within the CIA. And yet, the CIA is now caught up in this big scandal of where they supposedly have been spying on Congress. And that's something that Congress is now outraged about. It's okay for them to spy on Americans. It's okay for them to collect every human digital communication that happens on the planet. They can listen to every single thing that's going on all over the planet, and they have huge data mining centers to collect it all for decades. That's what they have now. All right? So that's okay. But the fact that they're listening to Congress now, that's a problem. Oh, okay, all right. I see how it works. As long as it's not you guys that are getting spied on, then you're okay with it. All right, that makes sense. All right, I understand where you're coming from. But, you know, I'm totally against any spying whatsoever on American citizens or on our Congress. Don't get me wrong. I think if the CIA was spying on Congress, they should be held accountable and they should be prosecuted. People should be fired. Heads should roll. But the fact that you're gonna get upset over it, that to me blows me away. And this charge is led by one of the most avid supporters of the NSA, and that's Dianne Feinstein. She's the one that's the most outraged over the CIA spying on Congress, or supposedly spying on Congress. But you know, that to me is just comical, because it's the hypocrisy that we keep seeing within the Democratic Party. They have absolutely no problem, you know, saying one thing and doing another, which is exactly why we keep seeing these so-called constitutional supporters within the Democrat Party. They keep telling us that, you know, we support the Constitution, we support what this stands for, and then they go right around and pass a law or support a bill that is a total violation of the Constitution and everything it stands for. How can you support the Constitution if you're trying to usurp its power? That doesn't make any sense. And it's because progressives are ideologues, and they'll say and do whatever they need to do to get power. That's it. They hope that you are uneducated. They hope that you are uninformed, and they hope that you don't follow their voting history. They just want you to listen to what they say, not what they do. Don't pay any attention to what they do. As far as you know, they're constitutionalists, and they're way more constitutional than these greedy Republicans ever could be, right? No. These people, and don't get me wrong, Republicans are just as bad in a lot of ways. Politicians are bad in general. Anybody who wants to get some kind of power is somebody that you shouldn't trust, all right? If that person has a desire to gain power and influence over you, that's somebody that you should question a little bit, don't you think? Anyway, that's just my point of view. Maybe a little more distrust of our government would be healthy for us as a country. But alas, we have so many people that are drinking the Kool-Aid of the government, and they think that, especially if their party's in power, that's a great thing. They want their party to have as much political power and influence as possible. But for some reason, they don't seem to correlate the fact that one day, maybe years and years and years from now, another political party will get into power. And when they do, they'll have the same power that the party that they supported had. But now that power can be turned and used against them. All right? They don't seem to understand that every bit of power that you give to the government one day will end up in your political opponent's hands. So, I'm not a fan of laws being passed to restrict the citizens. I'm a fan of laws being passed to restrict the government. Pass as many laws as you possibly can, and most importantly, enforce those laws. That's got to be the most important part of it. Anyway, we have a special treat for everyone today. We have a special guest that's going to be coming on the show today. He'll be on in a few moments, and his name is Chad Kent. He is a constitutional speaker. He goes around the country and he talks about the Constitution, and he's an award-winning speaker for his speeches that he's given. He's also the author of the book Uncomplicating the Constitution, which, by the way, if you'd like to get a copy of it, it's at onthemoveshow.com. You can get there and click the shop link on the homepage. We have it on our Amazon affiliate store. It's the Gear Store, which is the third link down on the shop page. So feel free to check it out. It's right there. If you like what he has to say today, you can buy his book and support him and learn a little bit while you're at it. So anyway, I have a clip here from Chad, and he's talking exactly about what we were just talking. It's he's got his YouTube channel, and this is one clip that he had on it, and his clip is called "Trust Me, I'm from the Government." So here it is.
With all the stuff coming out over the last few weeks about the NSA collecting people's emails and telephone calls and all that, we've had a whole lot of politicians come out and say something to the effect of, hey, I know it's a little uncomfortable that the government's spying on you, but you got to trust us. We're doing it for your own good. We're trying to protect you. In fact, President Obama said exactly that not too long ago.
And if people can't trust not only the executive branch, but also don't trust Congress and don't trust federal judges to make sure that we're abiding by the Constitution, due process, and rule of law, then we're going to have some problems here.
Well, sounds like we're going to have some problems then, aren't we? Because I don't trust you, and I don't trust the Congress, and I don't trust the judges. Why? Because that's the appropriate way to look at government. One of the biggest problems that we've had in this country lately, one of the reasons why we're in the problem, having all the problems that we have right now, is because most Americans don't have an appropriate fear of the government. Our nation was founded on distrust of government. In fact, Thomas Jefferson said, in questions of power, let no more be said about confidence in man, but bind him down by the chains of the Constitution. What did he mean by that? He meant that people can't be trusted. So when it comes to issues of people who have power over your lives, don't ask questions about whether or not you trust a particular person in office, but bind everybody, tie their hands, chain them down by limits on their power, so that even if they are bad people, even if you can't trust them, that they're still limited in how many bad things they can do to you because they're chained down by the Constitution. That's an appropriate way to look at government. I don't want to hear another politician tell me, oh, trust me, I know it's uncomfortable, but I'll do nice things for you. I'm here to look out for you. I'll be your daddy, all that. I don't want to hear it because I don't care if you're Mother Teresa. I don't care if President Mother Teresa is running the country. I'm still watching her. I don't care if my wife runs for Senate. I'm watching her back because you don't trust people with power. Look, I'll give you a great example. I live in Texas. I like Ted Cruz. I like what Ted Cruz is doing. I like what he's been saying, but you know what? I'm not going to trust him. Not because he's a nice guy, not because of anything that I've seen him say or do that makes me want to distrust him. I don't trust him because he's in a position of power. And because of that, we should be keeping an eye on what he's doing. You know, an odd thing about this is the people who are going to do bad things to you rarely come out and say, hey, by the way, we're collecting all this data so that we can enslave you. No, that's not how it works. They tell you, just give us a little bit of power. You can trust me. I'm going to do good things for you. That's why you should trust me. And then, boom, they turn around and do bad things to you. That's how bad people work. To paraphrase one of our founders, William Grayson, he said, look, when you're writing constitutions, when you're writing laws, you write them with the assumption that people will be bad, because eventually you'll be right. So let's assume for a moment that President Obama and every member of Congress and all the people in the NSA are wonderful people. They're angels, and they're really here just to help you out and protect you, and that's the only thing they care about. Let's assume that. What about the next administration? What about the next group of people that's in the NSA or the next Congress? Do you trust them? What about the one after that? Because eventually, we're going to get some bad people in there, you know that? And then, we'll have given them the power to look at your emails and to use all that against you. Does that sound like a good idea? Makes me a little uncomfortable, I'll be honest. And let's be clear, this doesn't have anything to do with President Obama. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody in Congress. This is about simply human nature. People are not to be trusted. Period. There are bad people in the world. Just think about it. Why do you lock your doors at night before you go to bed? Is it because you think there's a specific person in your neighborhood that's going to rob you? Or is the fact that you lock your doors an indictment of the character of the other people in your neighborhood? Or is it just that you know that there are a certain number of people in the world that are bad? There are evil people in the world, and some of them might come by and try to rob you. So you lock your doors. Same thing's true in government. There are a certain number of people that are bad. Does that mean that we're indicting the character of every member of Congress and every president and everybody and saying they're all evil because we want to put checks on their power? No. What we're saying is we realize that there are certain people in the world that are bad. There are certain people in the world that are evil, and we need to protect ourselves. And in order to do that, we need to put limits on their power, and that starts with the Constitution. So it is imperative that we learn not to trust the government ever. Go back to Jefferson's quote. Let no more be said about having confidence in men or having confidence in people, but always bind them down by the chains of the Constitution. And until we have a proper fear of government, we will never be able to preserve our freedom for the long term.
Okay, so that was Chad Kent. That's a clip from his YouTube channel. He has many more videos just like that where he talks and he breaks it down very simply. And you know, I got to say, a lot of the stuff that he says resonates with me. And I have a feeling that it would resonate with you as well. So anyway, I have Chad Kent on the line right now. Are you there, Chad?
You bet. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited to talk to you because after looking at your YouTube videos and everything, you know, a lot of the stuff that you say resonates with me, like I said, and I think it's going to make for great radio. It's going to be a great conversation today.
You bet. It's when we have people who care about liberty, a lot of times we may have disagreements about specific aspects of things, but we should be able to have a good conversation. Again, it's all about protecting your rights from the people in the government. So
absolutely. And you know, one thing it popped in my head when I was listening to your video, and it's a quote that Ronald Reagan once said. Any government that is capable of giving you anything that you want is also capable of taking away everything you have. So, you know, and a lot of people don't seem to think about it in that terms. You know, like the bigger and stronger your government is, it's dangerous. I mean, it's absolutely dangerous. You're playing with fire when you start giving these people, because that's what they are. They're people. They're not angels, you know. They're people, and they are capable of the same kind of corruption and evil that everyone else is in this world. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting quote, and I kind of related to what you were saying. So first thing I would like to talk about is first of all, Chad, I don't know if you're prepared or not to play this with me here, but I kind of want to go through a game with you right now, and we'll call it, is this constitutional? So I'm going to rattle off some things here, and then I'll give you an opportunity to tell me if you think it's constitutional, yay or nay, and why. So the very first one I'd like to start with is Obamacare. What do you think? Is that constitutional?
No. And in a lot of different ways. And it depends on which aspect of it that you want to get into, because there's so many different ways that it is unconstitutional. For example, John Roberts said that it's constitutional because the federal government has a very broad taxing power. But unfortunately, that's just not true. If you look, Article 1, Section 8 says something very specific. It says that Congress has the power to lay and collect taxes, purpose of providing for the general defense, paying our debts, and the general welfare, right? If a tax is created, but it's not for those purposes, it is unconstitutional. So what that means is they can't tax us for the purpose of redistributing wealth or for making us buy health care or anything like that. They can only tax us for those three purposes.
Well, let me play devil's advocate on this one, because I know what the liberals out there, progressives out there are saying is that, well, that's a general welfare, right? We're providing for people free health care, right? That's general welfare. So what's your response to that?
Well, the general welfare, actually, that's a term that was pretty commonly used back around the time that the Constitution was written. So we can go back and find out exactly what they meant by the phrase general welfare. And what they meant was common welfare. Think those things that we have in common, broad, generic welfare. So that meant things that affected the entire country. So what that was intended to mean was it was an attempt to exclude the specific welfare. That means that the federal government wasn't intended to do things specifically for the interest of one state or one region of the country. They could only do things that were in the general, think common, interest. So they could only do things that we all have in common.
I see. So as far as your take on Obamacare, it requiring you to have insurance. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll let you go.
I was just going to further explain that. If you look, generally what they meant by general welfare, if you want to look into it, is regulating trade with other countries and foreign defense. That's it. That's what they meant generally by general welfare. So,
yeah, and that's my opinion on the federal government as well, is basically to provide, trade agreements and facilitate trade within the states, to encourage, not to demand it, but to encourage trade, but also to provide for the general defense, so help make a mutual protection pact between the states as well. So, but as far as Obamacare itself, requiring somebody to have health insurance, and then if they don't, they're penalized or taxed, however they're trying to justify it. What are your thoughts on that, requiring somebody to purchase something in order to be a law-abiding citizen in the United States?
Well, if you think about it, the purpose of the federal government, or purpose that our Constitution was written anyhow, is to protect our rights. We know that because if you look at the Declaration of Independence, and remember, you have to read the two together. Okay, the federal or the Constitution doesn't override the Declaration of Independence. It's sort of an enactment, if you want to think about it. The Declaration of Independence gives you the philosophy, what we believe, and the Constitution puts that into action. And in the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson explains that we create governments to secure our rights. And what Obamacare does is it deliberately takes away my right to liberty. Because liberty means I have choices in my life. I can make a choice one way or the other. In that, they're taking away my choice of whether or not I want to have health care. So in that, you have to know that when they start violating your rights, that you're on very tricky constitutional ground.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I definitely agree with that. So let's move on. The next question I have, and obviously I kind of know where you stand on this, but as far as NSA spying and the constitutionality behind that, how are they trying to rationalize this as being constitutional, and what are your thoughts on the NSA spying itself?
I don't think they are trying to rationalize it from a constitutional standpoint, at least not that I've heard. I guess maybe say the national defense or something like that, but I've not really seen anybody try to make that case. Is it constitutional? No. Let's look at the Fourth Amendment, right? I have a right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures of my personal property. So does it matter what kind of property they're searching? Does it matter if it's my mailbox, my bedroom closet, or my email box? No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter if they're listening into my phone calls. No, I have a right not to have government intrude into my personal life. And so if they're doing that, they need to they need to get a warrant and state exactly what they're searching for and what crime I'm suspected of. Personally, I'm not suspected of a crime at the moment, so they should not be looking at my email boxes. They should not be recording my conversations or anything like that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. It just is a basic concept to me, and it's one of the things that our founders started this country on, is that in order to be searched, in order to have things seized, they have to have a warrant. That's simple. I mean, that's a basic principle of our country, of our legal system, that we have to have a warrant. And if you don't have a warrant, you can't just go searching everything. And it seems like these secret courts, they make up their secret laws, and these people just, get away with violating the Constitution, grossly violating the Constitution for millions of Americans. And not only just the Constitution itself, because other people across the world, other nations, they still have human rights too. Just because they're not protected underneath our Constitution, that doesn't mean that we should go violating their rights. When they're just, especially when we're bulk collecting, and they're not even suspected terrorists. They're just people. They're just, hey, you know what?
They're just
live in Yemen.
thinking, well, maybe I might be able to use this at some point. Hey, why not? Right?
Yeah. Yeah,
and then you have to wonder about why.
Exactly. Yeah, why do you think that they're doing that?
Well, it's a power thing. I mean, when you have everything about a certain person, then you kind of own them in a sense, because people say, well, I don't have anything to worry about because I haven't done anything wrong. Okay, well, could I maybe cherry pick some emails and make it look like you're doing something wrong? I'm sure we could do that to anybody. I mean, think about, what if you clicked on the wrong, hit a link to the wrong website on accident? Let's say you put in the wrong URL once when you're going on the web, and you end up at a website you didn't plan to be. Well,
yeah.
I'll give you a good example. Once I was trying to buy sporting equipment. I just, I was going to go to Dick's Sporting Goods, and I didn't think, and I'm just like, oh, okay, www.dicks.com. Whoops.
Yeah.
Guess what? Now all of a sudden you can make me look pretty bad if you've been following my internet activity, can't you?
Yeah.
But that's an honest mistake. But
well, not only just that kind of stuff, but everybody has somebody in their family that has done something embarrassing, and
everybody
to
has
put this
crazy
kind of
uncle.
power. Yeah, everybody has a crazy uncle, something like that, or the cousin who just can't stay out of jail or stop driving drunk or something like that. So you imagine the citizens, the senators and congressmen, people like that, who may want to hide this stuff and keep it, from being public knowledge or something. Now the NSA, they can find out stuff about your family, or you hold that against, these senators or whatever, or if they're spying on them specifically, that information could be used to blackmail them and get them to do whatever they want. I mean, this is like scary conspiracy theory kind of stuff, but I mean, it's something that could happen if the wrong people got into these positions. And would you disagree with that?
And on that, I'm not arguing that that's what is going on. But here's the thing. People always say, oh, well, that's scary. I could never imagine that happening, and that's really outlandish and blah, blah, blah. And my argument is always, how about let's not find out if they do it? How about let's not even make it possible? Let's try that. When we're talking about something as important as that, I'm all about let's not toy with it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people would have not been able to imagine the Holocaust. That was unbelievable. That kind of human suffering put on a specific group of people. That kind of atrocities. I mean, it was awful. That what they did to those people was abhorrent. And to say that you can't even imagine that something would happen, honestly, that just means that you're not very imaginative, because anything could happen. I mean, it just is a matter of who's in office.
Yeah, and it's not an indictment necessarily of the people that are in office, because I know a lot of people get uncomfortable with that because they might like one person or another and they don't think it's fair to point fingers or anything, and that's fine. let's think about the next person. Do you trust that person? Because you don't know who it is. You always want to protect yourself. When you're talking about freedom, your liberty, the greatest possession you have in life, the one thing that you can't do without, that nothing else you have is worth anything without, you need to protect that as carefully as you possibly can. So I say we lock it up as tight as we can, and that seems to be the founder's point of view as well. They're always trying to figure out, what's the one thing that, people in their behavior that might cause them to do something to the people and oppress them or do something to them, and they always guarded against that any way that they could.
Mm-hmm. So your thoughts on checks and balances? From what I understand here, it sounds like you're a fan of checks and balances and would maybe even approve of more checks and balances on our government. Is that correct?
Yeah, because you don't trust anybody with power, right? Like, concentrating power on one area is very, very dangerous because then one person has that opportunity. If, let's say, the idea with checks and balances and the separation of powers is no one branch of government has enough power to run it on its own. So if you get some, tyrant in one branch of government, they can't run it on their own. They need the other two to cooperate with them before they can do bad things with the government. And so what you're trying to do there is you're trying to prevent any one person or one group of people from being able to grab that government and just take it in a tyrannical direction and oppress you. And so that's a protection that we have, and we need it because human nature tells us that people are power hungry, and that's what they're going to do. It's a natural tendency for people to want to have power and to want to have more power once they get a little. So we need to protect ourselves from that.
Absolutely. I could not agree more with that. So what are your thoughts then when Obama says things like, he has a pen and a phone and he can do anything he wants. He can basically, go around Congress and just usurp power and do whatever he wants, basically, in that regard. Here, I actually have a clip here of him saying that he's going to bypass Congress. Here it is real quick.
But when Congress refuses to act, and as a result hurts our economy and puts our people at risk, then I have an obligation as president to do what I can without them.
So what are your thoughts on when he says things like that?
That's one of the scariest things ever, because what he's saying is, I'm going to do what I want. He almost acts as if Congress is his little brother. And if they'll do things, that's great, and I'll work with them and everything like that, but ultimately I'm going to do whatever I want. Well, that's not how the government works. What we need to understand, we definitely need to change the way we see the president in this country. Because if you look in the Constitution, he is not a policymaker. Nobody, according to the Constitution, we should not care whether the president has this policy or that policy because he does not create it. He just gets to approve, right? He gets to either sign it or veto it. That's his input. After that, he is an administrator. He's a facilitator. Yep. That's his job. Okay? Roger Sherman, one of the founders, during the while we were working on the ratification, he said, or no, actually this was during the Constitutional Convention, I think. He said basically the president's job is to put the will of Congress into effect, and that's it. And he needs to understand that. He is not a policymaker. We don't elect presidents to go ahead and run, to decide what our policies would be. We elect a president to decide how to implement the policies that we've created. And he fundamentally misunderstands that because he wants that power, which is why we need the checks and balances in the first place, because you don't want to trust anybody with that kind of power. And I can't remember who said it, but off the top of my head, it was somebody that mentioned that the last person you want, I think actually it was John Locke, now that I think of it, said the last person you want to trust with enough power to run a government like that is the type of person who thinks he can run a government like that. Anybody who's not conceited is the last person you want to trust with that kind of power.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I got one more clip here real quick. Obama talking about how he has a pen and a phone, and he's going to use them. So here it is real quick.
We are not just going to be waiting for legislation in order to make sure that we're providing Americans the kind of help that they need. I've got a pen and I've got a phone. And I can use that pen to sign executive orders and take executive action.
All right, so What are your thoughts on the executive order process? Do you think it was designed for him to create these broad-reaching policies and to be able to create these agencies that could just try to basically make policies that will change every aspect of our life? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, they all, he's not the first one to try that. They all like to think that it's some superpower that can create laws that they really want super bad, but it's not. And honestly, executive orders are not in the Constitution. It's a tradition that goes back to George Washington. He was the first one to use it, so it's not a new thing. But it's important for us to understand what an executive order is. What it is it's basically a formal way for the president to ask that something be done within the executive branch. So he might use it to ask that a certain regulatory agency, like the EPA, gives him a report on a project they're working on. That's an executive order. As soon as it gets out and touches anybody outside the executive branch, then he's exceeded his authority.
And we see this over and over and over again. Every single, it seems like, executive order from the recent years have been getting more outrageous, it seems like to me.
Exactly.
That's
the issue, because people will say, you'll have people that like the president saying, well, yeah, but he hasn't issued as many executive orders as Bush. Well, maybe not. It's what he's doing with them. It's the substance of them that's the problem. And by the way, this is why we have to be careful about anything we allow our federal government to do, which goes back to all the stuff that you and I have talked about so far, which is you never let them set a precedent, because what happens with presidents is one president will do something that no other president's done before. And then his successor, the next guy that gets into office, goes, well, he did it, so I can do it. And then they do it a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And then you get to this point where, you've got Obama thinking that he can change laws, ignore laws, delay laws, all these different things just with an executive order because, well, the guy before me did executive orders. Think signing statements. George Bush, I think, was the first one to really start using these signing statements to say, I'm not going to enforce this part of a law. Well, now Obama got into office. Well, he did it. See, that's why we can't allow those precedents to be set, because it's a snowball.
Yep. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that 100%, because the more we allow them to do, the more they continue to do it. And it's not even just like they're satisfied with saying, well, so-and-so did that. They'll build on it and make it even more ridiculous and outrageous. One question I had for you, getting back to the constitutionality of things, and I want to talk more about checks and balances. As far as the 17th Amendment, and to my listeners, the 17th Amendment basically made it so that the people elect the senators, and the people were never meant to elect the senators. It was supposed to be selected from the state legislators, and that was who was supposed to pick who's in Congress. So it was a check and balance within the Congress itself, and it was not meant to everybody in Congress be elected by the people. So. What are your thoughts on that, first of all, Chad? And do you support that? What would you do instead if you had something different?
Well, it's important to understand why the senators were chosen by state legislatures, and the idea is this: you have those checks and balances within the federal government. So each of the branches checks each other. The states were intended to be the check on the federal government to make sure that it doesn't get too big. How would they check the federal government? Well, they elect those senators, right? State legislatures appointed the senators. So that means anytime the federal government wants to pass a law, they have to get the approval of the states first. So if that federal government starts to infringe on the powers of the states, they can stop it cold, because they can just make sure that law doesn't pass. And the 17th Amendment got ratified in 1913. If you want to peg when that federal government has really started to grow, 1913. That's when things just ballooned and went crazy. So it is an important check on the federal government because, well, actually a great example of that is Obamacare. If you look, a lot of the states are floundering trying to figure out how to fight against this thing, and they don't know how. And the reason why is because there is really no way for them to fight back, because the assumption was if they didn't like the law, they wouldn't approve it in the Senate. And so that's why you have these weird lawsuits going on where they're trying to do different things through the courts, and of course it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. So you were talking about 1913. I think it's very important to point out that you are right as far as the blooming of the federal government. That's around the same time that they created the Federal Reserve, passed the 15th Amendment and whatnot. And Mike, I wanted to know, what's your take on the Federal Reserve? Is that constitutional? Is it constitutional to have a private bank that is it's not federal at all, and nor does it have any reserves? Is it constitutional to have that bank in charge of our money?
I don't. I would have to do some research on this specifically, but offhand I would say no, because if you look at the 16th Amendment, which is right about the time when they passed it, it does give them the ability to collect income taxes without apportioning it amongst the states, which is what really allowed them to get a hold of a lot of money. Now, in terms of the banking, you have to ask yourself, where would that power come from, right? Where would they get the power to create this federal bank that would create paper money? And I don't see that power in Article 1, Section 8. It does say, that they can coin money, but you'll see a lot of several founders who said that meant coins, not paper money. So it really is on dubious ground, personally. Of course, again, we have to ask ourselves, what's the purpose of the federal government? Well, it's to protect our rights. And generally, if you want to know, the purpose of the federal government is to make sure that the nation's secure, right, common defense, and to otherwise create a safe environment for the states to operate in. That's the overall job. So how would that benefit the federal government in doing the job that it was created to do? And it doesn't, right? It doesn't do anything to help it protect the nation. It doesn't do anything to help make it easier for the states to operate. So, on that level, I have a tendency to say it's not constitutional.
All right. Well, at this point, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more with you, Chad, in a few seconds here. We'll be back. We're going to talk more with Chad. If you want to join the conversation, it's 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
All right, we're back. And we have Chad Kent here on the line, and we're talking about all things constitutional. We're breaking it down. We're uncomplicating the Constitution, as is the title of Chad's book, which, by the way, again, you can purchase a copy of that at our website, onthemoveshow.com, in the shop link, and you go to our Amazon affiliate store, which is the third link down, the gear store, and it will go through Amazon. It's no additional cost to you, and you're supporting our store, you're supporting Chad's store, or Chad's book, and you're learning something in the process. So anyway, we got Chad on the line, and you wanted to continue off of what we were talking about before, so go right ahead, Chad.
Oh, I just wanted to back it up, because I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that, we weren't supposed to do paper money. But again, Article 1, Section 8 says, the federal government does have the power to coin money, which makes sense why they would give them that power. But if you read some of the ratification debates and things like that, like Oliver Ellsworth, James Wilson, these guys did discuss that in the ratification debates and talked about how paper was not to be money. So it's not a new concept that would be unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm. And you know, it has totally deflated our dollar. I mean, putting it into this fictional kind of money, it's like monopoly money where we say it's worth a certain amount based on how much is printed and backed by a dollar or backed by a dollar of gold. The problem is it's no longer backed by gold. So now we just got this dollar that's, we're printing and digitizing more and more money and pumping it into a stock market, which is artificially inflating the stock market. And, all these things that are going on right now, it's dramatically hurting our dollar. And everybody can see it. Everyone can see, that you're not able to spend as much at the grocery store. Your dollar doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the Federal Reserve.
Well, with things like this, to me, where I always go, and I think you saw this just in our last discussion here, is that you always have to ask yourself, what are we trying to do here? Again, the purpose is to protect our rights. The government's there to serve us and to protect our rights. And how does this Federal Reserve protect our rights? Well, I don't see how it does that. But number two, it also gives the federal government a lot of power. And we need to be careful about that. Like you just talked about, it gives them the power to manipulate the money in different ways and to inflate the stock market, like you said. And that gives those folks in the federal government a ton of power. And we have to be very careful about that, because when they have power, that means we have less power. So for all those reasons, I'm very, very leery of it.
And my biggest issue is that the Federal Reserve is not a federal agency. It's not federal, so no one is appointed to it from the people. There's no way. We don't elect leaders to the Federal Reserve. It's all private. It's a private company. So these people are just bankers. I mean, they're bankers that are in a private bank. So there's nothing that. Go ahead.
Of how that's dangerous. Because we always, look, they never do these things and then just let them go. The government never gets smaller, and they never miss an opportunity to grab power. And so we have this new, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
The new one that they're having the issues about the recess appointments.
Yeah, I think that's the name of it.
Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Because it's going to protect you from all those awful credit card companies or something like that. Do you know how that's funded?
I'm guessing taxpayer money.
Well, no, actually. See, that's one of these things they tell us about all our executive agencies. They tell us, don't worry about these executive agencies because Congress has oversight. And if they do anything bad, then they can withhold funding and all these different things to tell us that we shouldn't worry about, agencies like the EPA that might be trampling on your rights or whatever. Well, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, you've got these people, if I remember right, they're appointed for life, so we really don't have any control over them. And then that group is funded as they get a percentage of the profits from the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
So the point there is these folks can make laws or make regulations, but regulations, let's be honest, are laws. Mm-hmm. So they can make rules that you have to live by, and we have absolutely zero control over these people.
Mm-hmm. There's no recourse.
We can't take away their money.
Exactly.
We can't. They get funded by the Federal Reserve. We can't vote them out of office, so they can make any law doing anything ridiculous to you that they want, and we have no recourse. That's frightening. See, that's why. Mm-hmm. That's part of why you don't want to get into things like this Federal Reserve thing, where some people will say, "I don't see the danger. It's not a big deal," or this type of thing. But you always have to know that governments or politicians are always going to try to find little ways like that to manipulate the system to give themselves more power. And that's exactly what they've done here.
And I definitely agree with you on that. So I'd like to pivot here, change it to another topic, something that's happening in the recent news here. First thing I'd like to ask, sir, from what I understand, you are a religious man. Is that correct? Would that be a good assumption?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I'd like to know what your thoughts are on the recent Supreme Court case with Hobby Lobby, how they're being forced through Obamacare to provide not just birth control that they have a problem with. It's the morning after pill specifically that they have a problem with. So, what are your thoughts on a company that's being forced to violate their religious beliefs to provide the morning after pill for this purpose for their employees? I'm just curious what your take on this is, and should they be forced to do this? Should they not? Who's right? Who's wrong?
The question isn't whether or not the birth control mandate is constitutional. It's how many different ways is it unconstitutional. Because this thing, I think, might set a record for the different ways that you could rule against this thing. Because what we have here is Congress forcing somebody, compelling them to engage in an activity that they believe to be sinful. Okay? In my mind, that's even worse than asking them not to do something like praying that they think is important. That you're actively asking them to be sinful, which is a problem, right? That's every bit as bad as like a state church forcing somebody to sit in a church they don't believe in, like grabbing an atheist and saying you have to sit in the state church even though you don't believe in it. I think it's pretty much on the same level, right?
Yeah, I have to agree.
Where did this law originate, this birth control mandate? Well, it wasn't passed by Congress, was it? It was enacted by the president through the HHS, right? So he has no authority to enact a law. Despite, that's a whole different discussion we can get into in a minute if you want. But he does not have the authority to create this law. And even if Congress did enact it, they don't have the authority to force anybody to buy anything. So what we have here is basically it's the president enacting a law who has no authority to enact a law that egregiously violates one of the most fundamental freedoms that our entire country was founded on, and it's all done in an attempt to exercise a power that the federal government doesn't have the authority to use, even if the law was passed through Congress. Yes, it's unconstitutional, which, by the way, I believe, as a religious person, that this whole thing can be solved by the word choose. It's very simple. Hobby Lobby and their owners can choose to offer birth control or not offer birth control. And the person who wants to get a job can choose whether they want to work there or not. And if you don't like that Hobby Lobby doesn't do that for their employees, you can choose not to shop there. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm. And you can choose not to work there as well.
Yeah, you can choose to work somewhere else. This is not a big issue. If you really are that offended by them not covering this, then work somewhere else. And it almost becomes one of those situations where, God forbid, you have companies bidding for people's services and saying, oh, gosh, we can't get any employees because that other place across the street is offering birth control. We'd better do that if we want the best people.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that's not going to happen, though, because the price of birth control, I mean, you're talking $20 for a pill or something. It's something ridiculous. I don't understand why they're forcing, a private company to provide something that they should just pay for themselves. No one's denying them of their right to buy birth control. They can engage in whatever commerce they'd like, but Hobby Lobby is saying, hey, don't make us pay for it.
Well, that's the thing, is you got to realize if you want something for free, then the person that is buying it gets to dictate the terms. Because if you don't like what they're giving you, they can just stop giving it to you because they're the ones providing it. So it's kind of like that whole thing we probably all heard when we were growing up. If you're going to live under my roof, you're going to live under my rules. Well, if I'm right, because if they're paying for your rent, then you're going to be doing what they tell you to do. Same thing here. If you want my birth control, you're going to get what I give you. If not, you can choose to buy your own.
I like that. That's a good analogy there. So another topic here. One of your videos, and this is a unique stance. I haven't heard very many people talk about this topic, and it's one of those topics that a lot of people would be inclined to not mention because it's easy to be demonized. But in one of your YouTube videos, you spoke about injustices that have been placed upon the rich. That they aren't being treated equally as everyone else. And first of all, I'd like to know, would you care to explain to my audience what exactly we're talking about? And also, I'm curious, would you consider a flat tax to be a better solution?
A flat tax is a step in the right direction. The one issue I don't like about it is I don't feel like I should have to tell the federal government how much money I made. So that's my personal opinion. I don't think that's any of their business. Because once you start getting into income, that gives them all kinds of power and everything like that. In terms of mistreating the rich, it's an interesting discussion because, look, we have to decide if we all have rights or not. Are all men created equal or are they not? And one of the things John Adams said that I thought was particularly profound was he said, look, if we all have rights, then everybody has rights, even rich people. So if we're all equal and we're all equal in our rights, then the rich person has as much right to his large amount of property as a poor person does to his small amount of property. And if you want to be free, you have to protect the rights of everyone. So if I want to have free speech, the only way I can truly do that is to protect the rights of a progressive or a communist to say anything they want to say. And if somebody tries to shut them down, I, as somebody who wants to have free speech, should be first in line to defend that person that I disagree with. And it's the same thing. If I think I have a right to my property, I should be defending these rich people who might have more than me to have any honestly earned money or property that they have without having it being confiscated from somebody else. And it's a dangerous thing. Look, when we start allowing people to make laws that way, it divides us. It creates a situation where the politicians can have more power, and that's what they're using it for, because it allows them to isolate people and say, to go up to somebody at election time and say, you know what? Listen to me, John, or whoever it is, Joe Public, here. Listen, if you vote for me, I think you should have free health care. I really do. And if you'll vote for me, I'll go over to that guy over there and I'll take some of his money and I'll give it to you. You can divide people that way. Well, it sounds great to that one person, but you're taking advantage and violating the property rights of the other person. Now, that's a whole different conversation if we don't allow ourselves to isolate people that way, where he has to go over and say, hey, Joe Public, or whatever we're going to call him, hey, I think you should have more health care, and if you vote for me, I'm going to raise your taxes a little bit to get you some of that health care. That's a different conversation because Joe Public now knows that he can't pick the other guy's pocket to get what he wants. He knows that it's going to come at some expense to him as well. It changes the conversation entirely.
Absolutely. And okay, so I totally disagree with income tax in general. I think it was created as a way for the IRS to basically, find discovery, give them a reason to find you as a criminal or get involved in your life to see if you're engaged in some kind of criminal activity. So as far as a flat tax on maybe like a sales tax, what would you think about that?
I'm more for that area. Of course, we have to get rid of their ability to create an income tax because I don't trust them. Even if they voted away the income tax and then did a sales tax, it's coming back. You have to constitutionally change it, right? But, again, when the federal government started, what do we have? We had, excise taxes and tariffs and things like that. That's how they funded the government. People say, well, that doesn't sound like very much money. Exactly. If you've got a government that doesn't have much money, that means they can't do that much. We want to limit them to only – if we limited them to that kind of a tax, they would really only have enough money to do the things that are in the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Ronald Reagan once said that government doesn't ask for money it needs; it finds uses for the money it has. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically the gist of it. Yeah. But and I've seen that firsthand. I'm sure you've seen that yourself. But when I was in the military, I mean, it was crazy the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse that I saw firsthand of people doing. We had a wish list of things that we absolutely needed to get when we were, like, for example, I worked in the armory, so we needed stuff for the gun racks. Okay, great. We need weapon parts. Okay, great. We need different stuff. All right, great. So now we have everything that we needed, but we still got this money left over. Okay, well, what do you want now? What's out there that you absolutely want? Okay, well, it'd be nice to have this, it'd be nice to have that. And once we get through it, now we're starting to get to ridiculous items of things like, hey, what do you need? Okay, we got everything we need, but, we got this money, and if we don't spend it, we won't get as much next year, because the way they look at it is that you didn't need that money, so now you don't need as much next year. So what they do is they will buy big screen TVs, and they'll put them up on the wall in a situation where a poster would have done the same exact thing, or a whiteboard would have accomplished the same job. But instead, we're spending $10,000 on a big screen TV because we had to buy it from a specific contractor who had some kind of back deal, crony capitalist deal with our purchasing agency and stuff. So now we got to pay twice as much for a TV to do the job of what a poster could have done.
That's exactly what happens. And actually, you hit on something that goes back to our last conversation. Because part of the thing with the rich people is we want to talk about honestly earned cash. Because that crony capitalism stuff is not honestly earned. If you're using the government as a tool to force people to buy your product or whatever it is they're doing, or to subsidize you or to give you special rules, that's not honestly earned. And that's where capitalism gets misconstrued a lot of times, or mischaracterized, because capitalism basically means voluntary exchanges. I voluntarily engage in a transaction with you because you have something I want and I have something you want. In that case, it's really hard to get taken advantage of because everybody's doing things voluntarily. Well, when I'm forced to buy health care, that's not a voluntary exchange anymore. That's insurance companies being crony capitalists and taking advantage of the government, using it as a tool to, force transactions instead of having voluntary transactions.
Absolutely. And that's something I totally disagree with. When we have forced anything, I mean, that's coercion. That's a definition of coercion, is to force somebody to do something that they never would have done before, at least not of their own free will. And I think there's something innately wrong with that. I think that is the most ridiculous thing. Save when we have to ask for permission to do something that is technically considered a right. Like, for example, with all the gun control and stuff that's going on, we have to ask permission to carry a gun in certain places. Like, it requires us a permit to have a gun, to own a gun, to conceal carry a gun. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is an interesting issue because you think about, if you suggested a permit to speak your mind, most people would see that as being something that you freak out about, right? But with your right to self-defense, now somehow they can regulate it. And that's a frightening thing, in my mind anyway, because, again, we got to think about what kind of power we're giving to these people. And, look, anytime you have a situation where they have all the guns and you don't, or they have the ability to manipulate the guns, right? That's the problem, because then you're left defenseless. And I don't know about you, but I never feel comfortable when I'm in a situation where the other person is completely in control of you. So if we live in a country where the government has all the power over you and they can essentially do whatever they choose to, now they might not be doing anything, right? But they have that power to do so, and that's always a frightening situation for me. And if you have to register your guns so they know where they are, or you have to file for a permit to get one so they know who has the guns, that gives them the advantage.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It turns the government into no more of a legitimate government than criminals in an alley holding you hostage. They're the only ones in control of the guns, so they're equally a government, just like our government would be if they took away all of our guns. And the whole concept of requiring permits for me is a hot button issue for me, just because I think that the sheer fact that I have to ask your permission as a government official to assert one of my rights that I have, it's a right. So first of all, if it's a right, I shouldn't have to ask for permission. But most importantly, you can deny me. So if you can deny me, then is it really a right? Is that are we actually limiting the right to bear arms, which, as you know, the Constitution says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So how is that not considered an infringement?
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing is, we've gotten into this situation where we expect the federal government to do everything. And generally they didn't get involved in these things. You didn't see a whole lot of court cases revolving around the Bill of Rights throughout the 1800s, because the federal government, it really didn't do a lot of things domestically. It wasn't supposed to necessarily do a lot of things domestically. But now that we have this thing where they say the 14th Amendment's been incorporates the Bill of Rights to mean the states, now every time some, kid wants to say God at a valedictorian's speech or something, it becomes a federal issue. And so that's kind of, I think, where we get into this, because now you get these ideas where we want the federal government to do everything. We want them to have policies about guns. We want to have them want them to have policies about education, about all these different things, and that's where you have the clashes. If we got them back into their own sphere, then we'd be fine, right? Because we wouldn't have to have these debates because they wouldn't be infringing on our rights.
Absolutely.
And I went on a bit of a tangent there, but hopefully it still made sense.
Well, I got what you were saying. And as far as another thing here, I'd like to spin it here. One of your videos that you were talking about is how we have to become teachers of the Constitution. You know, I loved it when you said that, because that's actually something that I'm not the smartest person in the world, and I don't even have all the answers when it comes to is it constitutional, everything about the Constitution. But I am trying to learn, and we started a constitutional study group here in Vancouver, Washington, and we meet once a month and we talk about the Constitution, very similar to what people would do in a Bible study. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I'm studying and I'm trying to learn more. I really like the fact that you are advocating people to learn the Constitution on their own, take that control into their own hands and not depend on the government to teach you. And my question to you, sir, is do you think that the government purposefully undereducates us on the Constitution as a way of basically making it so we don't know what they're allowed to do?
Well, yeah, that's one of the problems I see with having, federal Department of Education, because I was, like we talked about in that clip that you played before I got started here, where I said, we don't have a proper fear of the government. Well, if the people in government are the ones deciding our education policies, how likely do you think those folks are to teach you to be afraid of them? It's not going to happen, right? The people who are doing that are going to teach you an interpretation of the Constitution that gives them power. Why? Because people like power, and they don't generally give it up once they have it. That's what made George Washington so unique, was that he had power and he gave it away. If everybody did that, he wouldn't have been looked at so highly because he did that. So we shouldn't expect it to happen, and we shouldn't expect the government to teach us a Constitution that's designed to restrain their power. And there's another interesting, or really, really important thing to dovetail on what you're saying there about learning the Constitution. We are taught by, the elites in Washington, college professors and lawyers and whatnot, that the Constitution is really complicated and you can't understand it and blah, blah, blah. That's bunk. You can understand the Constitution, and you have to be able to understand the Constitution, because if you can't, then it completely undermines the entire purpose of it. And here's why I say that. The Constitution is designed to create a self-government. It is a government where the people can govern themselves. And if you can't understand the Constitution, then self-government becomes impossible. If it was something where you and I had to be able to govern ourselves, then they had to write a Constitution that anyone can understand.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with that. Just so my listeners know, I know you have a YouTube channel, and can you give my listeners a link to your YouTube channel so they can find more of your stuff and hear more of the stuff that you have to say? Because, like I said, a lot of the stuff that you were saying was resonating with me, and I'm going to be checking out the rest of your videos. So where can they go to find out more about you and your YouTube channel, your website, all that stuff?
The best place to go is chadkentspeaks.com. That'll have a link to the YouTube, but also if you go to the blog page, it has all my radio segments and things like that, and there's a lot of good information on there. And the main thing is I'm going to give you information that is simple and easy to understand, and then you may agree with it, you may not, but let it, think about the ideas and then decide what you really think. Look at those clauses in the Constitution. Read the ratification debates. Those are online. Find the specific area of the ratification debate where they're talking about that. Look into it for yourself, because it doesn't have to be complicated if we don't make it complicated.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. So what was that YouTube channel address again?
ChadKentSpeaks.com. I'm not sure what the YouTube channel is exactly.
Oh, okay.
But if you go to ChadKentSpeaks.com, there's right on the front page there's a big button.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So with that, another video that you had on there, and I was really getting into it. Somebody's gonna have to fix that speech that you made. That was a good speech.
That one's not even on my channel.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That's on my channel.
I was doing some digging, man. I found out. I wanted to know who I was talking to. So, somebody.
Yeah, that was like 4 years ago, I think.
Yeah, well, I really liked it. The whole idea, the whole concept of letting people, take the wheel and trying to actually take ownership of what's going on. For me, that's what this show is all about. I mean, this show is called On the Move, and it's the whole point is to get people motivated to stand up and fight for their rights. Stand up for what's right, stand up for what you believe in. Even if I disagree with you, you should be doing that. Even if you're on the total end of the spectrum, if you believe that you're right and you're justified and everything, I have to support the fact that you're fighting for your rights. Now, we may be on opposite ends of the spectrum, but when it comes to certain issues that we cross over, and I hear this on Glenn Beck all the time. I listen to a lot of talk radio. So Glenn Beck, he talks about how we need to find strange bedfellows, and where we match up on certain issues. I think that's supremely important that we all actually stand up for each other, even if we disagree on every other issue. If we agree on this one, let's stand up and say somebody's going to have to fix that. Let that somebody be me. So I like what you said about that. Do you have anything else in regards to that speech that you want to comment on about that?
Well, like I said, I think that was 4 years ago, so I remember giving it. I don't remember the content, but I think what you're hitting on is important, though, that we have to agree that, we might have different points of view, different lifestyles, what have you, but where we have to come to agreement is that I'm not going to force you to live my way, and you don't force me to live my way, or your way, and then we can get along. It all comes down to that whole choose thing. If you want to live your life in a certain way and you choose to do that, fine. But let me choose to live my life. And as long as we can get back to that, we stop having these divisions. And I think a lot of the reason why you see things so heated right now, and you see so much anger between different sides, is because we're trying to use the federal government to do things that are where it's going to make decisions for everybody. For example, we talked about education earlier. Well, if the federal government's making all the decisions about education, well, then that means that if you want your kids to be educated with an atheist point of view, and I want them educated in a Christian point of view, only one of us can win. So we're at odds. We're enemies now. But if you move that back to a local level where I can choose to send my kid to a Christian school and you can choose to send your kid to a secular school, we can both be happy and still go out and have a beer later at night because I'm not trying to run your life.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that everybody can see that it's just wrong. For me, when I look down the list of policies and issues that people argue about, to me it just comes down to right or wrong, and it seems like common sense to me. And I hate using that word, common sense, but because first of all, that's what liberals like to say. Oh, it's a common sense, answer to the problem. Most of the time when they say that, it's the least common sense answer you could possibly think it would be. But I think for me, common sense is: are you forcing somebody to do something they don't want to do? Are you imposing your will on another person? And is that other person hurting somebody by not doing what you want them to do? Is there a victim at some point? And for me, that's what it ultimately comes down to. And on areas where we overlap and we agree on things, we got to speak up for each other, people. We have to. Otherwise, it's turmoil. There's no reason why you can't speak out against injustices, and hopefully, we'll create allies rather than enemies. Maybe they'll start to understand where we come from because we sympathize with them.
Yeah, and then I know we're wrapping up. I'll give you two quick things very quickly. One of the things we need to establish, especially if we're talking to somebody on the left, is they like to get on this, well, you don't like people. If you don't agree with me, why don't you want people to have health care, right? If I don't agree with national health care, then I must want to deny people health care. We need to establish from the baseline, I want everybody to have anything they want. Whatever they want, good. It's a question of how best to give it to them. And I honestly, in my heart, believe that doing a national health care type of deal violates people's rights and will ultimately give those people that the progressives are trying to help less. And that's the problem. So if we can establish that we're both good people and we both have the same outcome that we're looking for, now we can have a civil discussion. And that's what we need to establish right off the bat. The other thing is, I wanted to mention, if people do want to have that discussion and they go to my website there, chadkentspeaks.com, they can click over to my Facebook page and friend me that way, and we can have a discussion. Now, I'll admit right up off the top, I don't do drama, but so if somebody wants to come and call me names, you're probably not going to get a response. But if you want to come and you disagree and want to have a discussion, I'll be happy to give you, my research, my point of view, and who knows, maybe you can change my mind. I do like to discuss these things. And we can have a good back and forth if anybody wants to.
Absolutely, and I think that is a really important thing I talked about on the last show. I talk about it almost every show, is networking with people. Trying to build networks of patriots, like-minded people, get us all networked together, and not just one avenue, not just one way of connecting with each other. Be friends on Facebook and follow people on Twitter. Get their email address, their phone number, anything that you can possibly do. Find people, network together, and organize, because the left is organized. Those guys, that's one thing that they're really good at, is organizing and taking amazing vacations. They are great at doing those two things. And we need to be able to at least do one of them. And let's start with organizing ourselves, linking us together as a community. I want to ask you one final question here before I let you go, Chad. And it's a question I ask all of my guests that come on the show. And the question is, what does it mean to you to be a patriot?
Wow, good question. For me, this country isn't about a piece of ground or a certain type of person or anything like that. To me, it's an idea, right? And if you come and embrace the ideas of liberty and trying to create a situation where people have the most liberty possible, then you're an American. If you're willing to fight for those ideals, then you're a patriot. So the idea is creating a situation where everybody can enjoy their rights to life, liberty, and property. And if you're willing to go out of your way to work and fight to protect that, not only for yourself but for your neighbor, then you're a patriot. And also that goes back to immigration as well. We have so many immigrants that come in and do such an amazing job of starting with nothing and creating a great life for themselves. And that's one of the unique things about this country, is that anybody can be an American. If you are willing to come and embrace our ideals of liberty, man, you can be just as American as somebody who is, born here from 10 generations of ancestors being here.
As long as you come in the right way and not just trying to slide underneath the radar and come in, illegally like that. And I'm assuming that's what you were talking about, right?
I am, and we can have a discussion, because that's one of those that I get frustrated. Those debates I get frustrated with, because there's the two sides, and they don't argue that. Well, maybe there's a middle ground where we don't just say secure the borders, but it is a little crazy, some of the laws we have. Maybe we open that up to let more, make it easier for people to come in and things like that. So there's a lot more to the debate than either you like them or you don't. I'm not a big fan of rewarding people who break the law, but hey, maybe some of the laws are a little crazy, so we look at that too.
Well, that's a point that you and I are probably going to have some major disagreements on, but that's a topic for another day, though. I sure do appreciate you coming on, Chad, and we'll talk. We'll talk more. I would definitely be happy to have you on anytime. Don't forget to get his book. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't think we'll disagree as much on that immigration as you think, but maybe we would. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As far as immigration, that's a topic. That's a long topic, so we'll get into that another time. I'll talk to you more off the air.
We'll do a whole other hour.
That'd be fun, yeah. But yeah, make sure you guys pick up his book, Uncomplicating the Constitution, and support him. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Chad, and thanks again. I really appreciate your time.
You bet. It was fun. If you ever need anything, just let me know.
All right, you too. Take care, man.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
All right, so at this point, we're going to cut to the last commercial break, and then we're going to wrap it up with my final thoughts. And I appreciate you all sticking with us. We'll be right back.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
All right, we're back. I sure do appreciate you guys sticking with us. So, When we were on the show last, we had Chad Kent. He's an award-winning speaker and author of the book Uncomplicating the Constitution. He was on with us for the full hour. So one thing, if you guys want to support him, you want to support the program, you can go to our store, onthemoveshow.com. Click on the shop link on the homepage. We'll have 3 stores listed right there. Scroll down. The third one down is the gear store. That's our Amazon affiliate. From there, you can purchase his book. Those proceeds will go to him, and at no additional cost to you guys, we get a small commission off of that, and that money will then be used to increase the program, make it a little better, a little bigger, get us better equipment, things like that, pay for a website, all this good stuff. So if you want to support the program, that would be a great way to do it. That would be a great way to support Chad as well, and we sure would appreciate your support on that. But moving on, I'd like to talk about the Hobby Lobby situation a little bit more. I have a clip of Democratic Senator Barbara Boxer. She was on MSNBC's The Ed Show. On this show, she's arguing against Hobby Lobby in their recent Supreme Court case that they're going through. So she claims that Hobby Lobby is not wanting to provide the insurance so that it would cover people for birth control. And she's trying to say that this is discrimination, okay, and that they're imposing their religious beliefs on their employees. I disagree with this on so many levels, but I have a clip of her talking about this, and it's pretty ridiculous at some of the things that she talks about. So here's the clip from her, and you guys, you make up your own mind on this.
Court sides with Hobby Lobby in their decision. What does this mean?
Oh, it's very dangerous, because what it means is that anytime a private sector corporation decides that they don't want to follow a law because they have a moral objection, maybe it's to vaccinations, maybe it's to immunizations, maybe it's to HIV treatments, there's nothing that will stop them from just saying, we're just not going to cover it. So we're not going to follow the law. And this is really a terrible thing, because we're a government of, by, and for the people. The reason we have elections is to elect people to pass laws. If the law is unconstitutional, that's one thing. But we have a religious exemption in the Affordable Care Act. You know that. And a lot of people thought it went too far. We have a religious exemption. But just because I may have an objection to something doesn't mean I should force my employees to follow, my religious freedom. Everyone has religious freedom. So you've got to follow the law. I'm hopeful the court will not do that kind of a radical decision. Maybe they'll just come in somewhere in the middle, but I'm praying hard on it.
Well, this is undoubtedly discrimination in the public workplace.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter who owns the business. It is discrimination across the board against women, no doubt. Senator Barbara Boxer,
can I just say one quick thing? I never heard Hobby Lobby complain about providing Viagra, but they pick on women. It's wrong,
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. First, let me just point out, and this is a little side note, all right, and then we'll get back to the main thing here, that she said that we elect people to pass laws. All right, I don't know about you all out there, but I don't vote for people to pass laws. A lot of time I vote for people because I think they'll pass less laws or even fight and repeal bad laws. That's why I vote for people. But more importantly, this law wasn't passed through Congress. This was passed from Obama sitting down these orders. So this wasn't even specifically passed through the Congress. So we didn't vote for anybody to pass that law. And in fact, you could even make the argument that Obama wasn't voted on to pass laws. He's the president. His job is not to pass laws. His job is to enforce the laws. And I know I say this all the time, but it seems like he does this all the time. He just keeps doing more and usurping more power. All right, moving back to what I was saying. She compared Hobby Lobby having a moral objection with their employees, with providing their employees with health insurance that would cover the morning after pill, and to actually not wanting to pay for HIV treatment. She's trying to say that is the same thing, or that somebody is arguing that. Who is arguing that they don't want to pay for HIV treatment? No one. No one at all is trying to make that argument, except for Senator Barbara Boxer. She's the only one out there trying to make that comparison. And the comparison is absurd. She's comparing something that treats people and saves lives to something that Hobby Lobby believes takes a life, which would violate their religious beliefs. And I'm not taking sides on that. As far as religious beliefs are concerned, I'm not taking a side. What I'm saying is that they're forcing someone to sin. So is Hobby Lobby really discriminating against their employees? Really? You know, no one is making these employees work there. And more importantly, no one is stopping those employees from buying the morning after pill on their own. How in the hell is Hobby Lobby discriminating against anyone? If anyone is being discriminated against, it's Hobby Lobby. How can you justify forcing someone to violate their religious beliefs in order to provide you with a pill that they believe is a sin? All right? She's trying to compare this with Viagra. All right? Viagra. There's a big difference between providing somebody with a pill that can get them going, all right, and a pill that, according to somebody's beliefs, is a sin. All right? Those are two totally different things. All right, and who's trying to come after Viagra? No one. Like she said, if she's looking at this as an attack on women, what about an attack on religion? I'm not even a religious guy. I'm not religious. All right? I'm agnostic. I don't, you know, it's not that I don't believe in things. I just don't actively believe in things. So this is my thought. Like, I support religion. I support your right, your freedom of religion. All right? And these two pills, Viagra and the morning after pill, they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. They're totally different, all right? She's comparing apples and oranges, all right? They're totally different, especially in the eyes of Hobby Lobby, all right? I just find it shocking that anyone can even argue on the side of coercing someone to violate their religious beliefs. You know, that's how I know she's an ideologue, just like the rest of the progressives filling the Democratic Party and the GOP. And yeah, I said it, the GOP has them too, all right? This is a huge problem. We have all these progressive ideologues just filling our heads with nonsense. They're sidestepping all the issues. They're dancing around it because they know that they're wrong. They know this stuff is morally wrong, so they have to come at it from an angle that it doesn't even make any sense because they got to confuse people on the issue. If they don't confuse people on it, they will lose the issue. So anyway, this brings us to the next thing here. You know, and for me, it's something that I think is important that everybody give a try. So let's move on here. Let's move forward. Let's go into the next segment of the show. We like to call it the Listener Challenge.
I challenge you to a duel. Did you hear that? Sounds like it's time for a challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge.
All right, this is a segment of the show where I give you guys something to get out there, get active, get on the move. So your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to go to isidewith.com. There's a survey on isidewith.com, and the website asks you a series of very in-depth political questions in order to find out what political party you most relate to. You know, I'm sure that you'll be surprised by the results. I know I was. You know, you'll find the survey. You can go to our Facebook, facebook.com/On the Move Show, or our Twitter, twitter.com/On the Move Show. And you'll find the survey there, or you can just go directly to isidewith.com and take the survey from that. Also, if you'd like to share your results with us on Facebook, facebook.com/On the Move Show, we would love to see them. Lastly, make sure you share the results with your family and your friends and encourage them to take the survey for themselves, because it may just open people's eyes that they're in the wrong party. You know, that's a challenge for this week anyway. I want you guys to get out there, get on the move. So it's important that you do this. But we're wrapping up the show for today. I sure do appreciate you guys tuning in, and I want to say thank you one more time to Chad Kent, our guest, for coming on the show today. Don't forget to check out his book, Uncomplicating the Constitution. Like I said, it's at our store, onthemoveshow.com, in the shop area, the third link down in the gear store. So you can check it out there if you want. And again, check us out here every week on Sunday at 5 p.m. at blogtalkradio.com/On the Move Show. Our Facebook, facebook.com/On the Move Show, youtube.com/On the Move Show, and twitter.com/On the Move Show. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.